Okay, it's 1 minute past 5. So yeah, so just we get started since we've got all the councillors here. Yes, so welcome everyone to the meeting. It's my first meeting as chair, so yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, do we want to start? We've obviously had one change, I guess, to the committee membership. So yeah, it would be good if everyone can introduce themselves, just so we know who everyone is.
Hi, I'm Kirsty Tate, Vice Chair and Hartcliffe and Withywood Councillor.
Hi, my name's Sue Cotter and I am the Councillor for Bishopsworth.
Kai Dodd, the Councillor for Southmead.
Tim Kent, Hengrave and Whitchurch Park Councillor.
Councillor Martin Fodor, Redland Ward.
Councillor Emma Edwards, Bishopston and Ashley Down Ward, subbing for Councillor Izzy Russell.
Councillor James Crawford, also Councillor for Bishopston and Ashley Down Ward.
Councillor Mark Weston, Councillor for Henry and Brentry.
Would officers also like to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, Pete Anderson, Director of Property Assets and Infrastructure. Thanks.
Sam Robinson, Head of City Leap Client and Energy Service.
I'm Alex Minshall, I'm Stendhal City Climate Change Manager.
Husanara Jones from Legal Services.
Thank you, Chair. I'm John Smith, Executive Director for Growth and Regeneration.
I'm Amy Rodwell, Policy Committee Coordinator, and I'm supporting this meeting today.
Brilliant. Yes, and I didn't actually say I'm Abby Finch, yes, Chair of the Environment and Sustainability Committee. Great. So yes, the meeting is being webcast. So hopefully there's some people watching from home or they can watch it back on the recording. But for those who are here, just to outline the emergency evacuation procedure, if an alarm does sound, we're not expecting a test. So please do leave the room via the lobby area and the main front door. And then what we'll do is we'll turn right and head down the ramp towards the cathedral, and the assembly point is in front of the cathedral. So moving on to agenda item 2, apologies for absence and substitutions. We just have one substitution today, so we've had an apology for absence from Councillor Izzy Russell, and Councillor Emma Edwards is taking their place, so thank you for that. I would ask if there are other apologies for absence, but everybody is here, so I take it there aren't. So on to the third agenda item, which is declarations of interest. Do any committee members have any declarations of interest relating to the items in the agenda today? No? Brilliant, thank you. We'll move on. So then on to agenda item 4, which is agreeing the minutes of the previous meeting. Yes, so I will move that the minutes of the committee held on the 26th of March are a correct record. Could I have a seconder for that?
Hi, I can second that.
Brilliant, thank you. Yes, and then so could the committee confirm that everyone is happy with those minutes as a correct record? Brilliant, thank you very much. We will accept those minutes then. Thank you. And then agenda item 5 is Chair's announcements. I don't have anything much to announce, but I did want to flag that there were some issues with the app that councillors used to access the papers today. So I know that some councillors had issues accessing some of those papers. So apologies for that. It was a technical issue with the app that we use. I'm hoping that everybody has now had a chance to read through all the papers. Okay, brilliant, thank you. But yeah, apologies for that. On to agenda item 6, which is public forum. So yes, we have up to 30 minutes available for public forum. We've already seen, the members of the committee have already seen all of the questions and the question responses and the statements, and they have been published in advance of the meeting. everybody that's asked a question can ask up to 2 oral supplementary questions, which we'll try to answer here, but if not, we'll get back to you in writing. And yes, if you've submitted a statement, you'll have up to a minute to talk to that statement, but I think we can be a bit lenient with time since it's quite a short public forum today. We've had 4 public questions and 2 public statements, which everyone will be able to read in the papers. But I think we've just got Dave Norris. Is that right? Brilliant, thank you. So if we start, well, you might want to start with the statement, actually, since they both relate to each other. So yeah, if you wanted to start with the statement.
Do I? Yes, I
yeah,
do.
I mean, they should pick you up. I don't think you'll need to go too close.
So it's the first time I've been in this room, so apologies if I transgress any etiquette, so give me some space. I've been, the statement is, in general, I'm dismayed by the sort of environmental degradation in all its facets. I live in one part of the city. I'm sure it's the same in any other part of the city. In my part of the city, there are the same problems everywhere else: bins, graffiti, dereliction, weeds not cut from, paths and gutters, overflowing drains, etc., etc., etc. I'm sure you are all aware of those kinds of things. So rather than just say, in general, I'm unhappy, I tried to focus on one specific thing, on the basis that a specific thing ought to be able to have a specific solution. And this was prompted, actually, by the way. People who used to live in Bristol came to stay with me, described the area as shabby, which is pretty embarrassing as a resident. So the one particular place I focused on is somewhere I walk past all the time, going to the shops in Clifton Village. You, I'm sure, will all know of the ex-W.H. Smith site. There's some bins there. They are pretty much guaranteed to be always overflowing with a mixture of waste from some combination of residents, businesses, and fly tippers. It then gets strewn overnight by the seagulls and the foxes, and the wind does the rest. So it's a terrible advert for the area and for the city. So for something like, it must be measured in years now. Whenever I walk past it and I'm particularly niggled by it, I take a photograph of it and I email that in to an increasingly large list, which includes the public outreach people from BWC, councillors, anybody else who tends to get copied in. I must say, so I've been doing that for years, the same thing. The first observation is I hardly ever get any response from anybody. In fact, there are some people who have literally never responded. As an individual, that just niggles me. And eventually, Paula, who's not here today, who's one of the few people who does actually regularly respond, indicated to me there was a way to turn up here and ask questions. So, I thought, I can't just moan and do nothing, so I'm actually here trying to contribute. So I'm shocked by it. I'm shocked by the lack of response that I get, and I'm shocked that we're unable to solve such a simple problem. So I sent, that's the statement, I sent the question in. The question's basically, why the hell can't we sort it out? And it would be great if I had, who's the individual? Who's the individual that's responsible? And then who's the line manager of that individual that holds accountability for solving the problem? I've looked at the answer that's come back. It's sort of, waffle, to be frank. I don't have that. Who's the individual? Who's the person that, when I next walk past and I take a photo, and it's terrible, who is that person? I'm unaware of that. I walked past last night, it's in the same state.
Thanks, Dave. So, yeah, I'll take that as your statement. And, Sorry, thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you for that, and thank you for making the effort to come here to give that statement. Yes, as you said, you did ask that question, and you received a response around the collection frequency being increased, and Bristol Waste having come to talk to residents on the street. So you can ask up to 2 supplementary questions. Yes. So do you have supplementary questions?
Supplementary question number 1 would be, I would like to have the individual names of the person responsible for it and that person's line manager who holds accountability, and then I will communicate directly with them. So my question is, can I have those individuals?
That's a good question. Yeah, I'll pass that over to Pete. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Norris. My name is Pete Anderson. I'm the client lead for the council for Bristol Waste. So Bristol Waste is our company. As you may know, I am the client lead for the company, not directly responsible for the operation, but for the delivery of the services from the company. So in terms of that point of contact, in terms of client side, that would be me. So as I say, my name's Peter Anderson. So my email address is, if you want to take it, it's peter.anderson@bristol.gov.uk, but I can respond to you via here, so you've got it. My line manager is John Smith, who's on the front there. Yeah, happy to be that point of contact. I know obviously we've responded, but clearly we need to make sure that the street scene is clean and safe and regularly up to standard, and if it's not, what is disappointing, it's over 4 years. So clearly there's something not working. Happy to be that liaison point for you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Pete. Did you have a second supplementary?
I guess so, because my second one is I don't know if it's a question or observation or whatever, but I think you should look at your change management processes. So one of the people that I was in communication with, one of your outreach, Alex, I don't know if it's a woman or a man, but he or she responds to me occasionally, has talked about it should have been moved to being doing 1 week, but it doesn't seem to have, it's been moved back to being 2 weeks. So it's amazing to me that there isn't a formal change management process. So I don't know if that's a question or a statement, but you need to look at how you run your business in terms of a formal change process.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I don't know if you did want to respond to that. Your microphone is slightly crackly, so it might be better for you to use the other one. Thanks.
So in terms of the processes, that's something I'll look into with Bristol Waste. In terms of Alex, I assume, I don't know the surname, but it would be an officer within the streets team within Bristol Waste Company. So I think I think it is probably both a statement and a question, and I'll take both away. So I appreciate that you've taken the time to come into the chamber today. As I say, it's not acceptable that we haven't been able to get on top of this, and it's continued for 4 years, and ensuring that process from notification to response to actually addressing the issue and solving it is obviously important, and that needs to be end to end. And that's the standard that we should adhere to, and if we haven't, and in this case we haven't, one, I apologise, and two, if we can use me as that point of contact, and I'm sure we can get it sorted. Thanks.
Do I get an email back with your emails? I'm not quite sure how it works, or does it go in the minutes? Or
Yeah, I will contact you directly. I think that's probably the easiest, rather than taking emails down now. I will contact you directly. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
and thank you again, Dave, for making the effort to come down. Thank you. Great. Brilliant. So, yes, that concludes public forum. The other statements and questions, there's no one here to speak to them, but we have read them and read the responses, so thank you for those. So moving on to agenda item 7, which is the annual business report. So this is the annual report that comes to note the arrangements for the Environment and Sustainability Policy Committee for the 2026 to 27 municipal year, and it's just for noting. But yes, I'll hand over to Amy to introduce that report.
Thank you, Chair. So I suppose just to start off with, I'll just mention that updated version of this report was published as a supplement to the main agenda reports pack today, and that was literally just to correct a typo in one of the recommendations, which titled the Vice Chair as Kerry Tate instead of Kirsty Tate. So that's been corrected now. So yeah, just to say just a short report to note, for the committee to note the chairing arrangements for the committee for the next municipal year. So that's Councillor Abby Finch as the chair and Councillor Kirsty Tate as the vice chair. And then we've got the terms of reference, which is outlined in the report and also which aligns with what's in the council's constitution. And then it's to note the meeting dates for the committee for the next municipal year. Thank you.
Oops, brilliant. Thanks very much, Amy. Yes, so yeah, as Amy said, we just need to note this one. So yeah, could I ask the committee to note the report as per Amy set out? Brilliant. Thank you very much. That one is noted. Fantastic. So then moving on to agenda item 8. So this report, obviously as requested by members of the committee, it provides an update on the Bristol City Leap programme and key projects and milestones relevant to this committee and sort of the decarbonisation programme. And it's for noting only, but I also want to flag that there is an exempt annex within the report which contains commercially sensitive information. So I'm keen to keep as much of the discussion as possible in public, but obviously if we do stray into those exempt areas, then we will need to move it to an exempt session. But what we can do is sort of keep those to one side and do as much of the discussion as we can and then pick them up again when we move to an exempt session if that is required. Great. So yes, I'll hand over to Sam Robinson to introduce the report. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll talk briefly to the paper and then I'll keep that brief because it was requested by the committee for an update, so I'll try to just leave as much time for any questions they have. Many of the committee will know about Bristol City Leap, but I'll do a quick recap on what it is just for those that might know less. So it's in essence a public-private strategic partnership which was stood up in January 2023 after a contract signed in 2022 after a fairly lengthy procurement process. And the partnership is between Bristol City Council and Amoresco as our strategic partner, with Vattenfall as an essential subcontractor to Amoresco for the delivery of the heat network. I suppose that the effect of that concession agreement, that 20-year concession agreement is it gives a first right of refusal to Amoresco for low carbon energy infrastructure projects, and those are defined in the concession agreement. So they're effectively pre-procured for delivery of lots of our low carbon projects. That spans things like electric vehicle infrastructure on the highways, domestic retrofit, both of our social housing, but also private housing through grant-funded schemes, of our corporate estate, so the council's buildings, of our local renewables programme, so deployment of things like ground-mounted solar or wind on council land, and also for the build-out of the heat network. I've talked about projects in the paper. I'll go through some key ones now just to give a flavour. So big things coming up this year. We've got the local electric vehicle infrastructure scheme, Levi, which is Department for Transport's flagship public EVI charging scheme. So we're hoping to secure around 3 million in grants for that, which is used to leverage a further 3 million, at least a further 3 million from the private sector, so potentially a charge point operator to come in and deploy sort of overnight charging type infrastructure, which will be across the city, but mainly targeted at areas where people can't park on their drive. We've got our area-based rolling retrofit programme, which is cross-tenure, cross-funding stream in Henbury and Braintree, so targeting sort of up towards 1,000 homes, multi-tenure, so some homeowners, social housing tenants as well, and that will run for 3 years. As the Warm Home Plan continues to roll out, we hope to secure more funding through that and to take that programme to other areas of the city where the housing stock profiles in Henbury and Braintree are repeated a lot across a lot of the city, so that need for retrofit is there everywhere. In corporate estate, we're hoping to sign 3 contracts this year, which would total 13 of our own buildings, and crucially that includes Camford Crematorium, where we're hoping to sign a contract by the end of this year to decarbonise the 2 cremators there for delivery in spring, summer next year. So Camford's responsible for about 13% of the emissions across our corporate estate, so it's a really big chunk. So across the heat network, you'll have seen recently planning permission granted for the Bath Road Energy Centre, which would, as Temple Island builds out, be the main sort of tool to provide low carbon heat to that development. And we've seen so far across the partnership around 50, or just over 50 million of capital investment into the heat network. And then across our local renewables programme, we've got 3 sites that we're looking to develop Always challenges around site viability for ground-mounted solar and wind, and we're working through funding mechanisms to make sure that those are viable. I should mention social value as well. A really strong area of the partnership so far. Across 3 years, we've delivered 600,000 in grants through the Community Energy Fund to community organisations, and over 150 in local jobs, 150 local jobs created as well. And then just lastly, to touch a bit on kind of performance reporting and give a flavour of how that works. So we get it's a 300-page concession contract that we signed. It has 31 KPIs in total, I think, and we receive quarterly data from Amoresco, and then that's contract managed within the council. The contract contains 2 key measurement dates called Measurement Date 1, MD1, which is March 2026, which is timely because that's sort of the basis, part of the basis for this conversation. And then there's a second one, MD2, which will be in March 2028. And the contract then allows flexibility from that point forward that we can all get back around the table and kind of set the direction and KPIs for the remaining 15 years of the partnership out to 2042. I'll stop because I think, like I said, it's important to make time for questions, and so, yeah, happy to take those.
Brilliant, thanks very much, thank you. Yes, so, yeah, opening it up to the committee for questions and comments. Yeah, James, if you want to go first.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Sam, for bringing this. Just got a couple of questions. First one, obviously the renewable energy projects, sounds good that there's a good solid pipeline there and that, you know, they're not scrabbling around for work. I just wanted to check, they're primarily wind and solar based. I was just wondering if that pipeline is looking at doing any battery projects. Obviously the sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow. And so basically, is there any scope within the concession agreement to kind of look at those projects to try and fill in those gaps rather than to rely on kind of a fallback fossil fuel solution of some kind?
Did you say battery? Sorry.
Battery, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. So battery storage would definitely fall within the definition of low carbon energy infrastructure for the purposes of the 20-year concession agreement. So absolutely, we could look at that. We actually address that through sleeving arrangements with our energy supplier, so we're able to export excess, and then that helps offset at other times. So we in effect can do that, but through a sleeving arrangement rather than a battery where you might use that power on site.
Yeah. Okay, cool. The other point I just wanted to raise as well is it mentions in the electric vehicle charging the gully trial for the electric vehicles. Essentially, I've had some feedback from some of my residents that the cost of that seems relatively high. I appreciate it's a trial as well, and I know you're probably not going to have the figures off the top of your head, but I was wondering if we could just see if we can push City Leap a bit more on those figures, and just see if we can do a bit of comparison and whether we can bring that cost down. I know it's a trial. I know that it's not necessarily going to be the core of our electrification strategy for the kind of private vehicles in the city, but if we can just have another check of that pricing and see if it's actually kind of achieving what we want in that, making it easier for people to electrify rather than another prohibitive cost.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that away. The cost, so I saw 2,000 to 6,000 quoted, which is hedging our bets a bit, isn't it? And so I think we've had, over 100 expressions of interest in, but the development work hasn't been done yet to see what that looks like on the ground, hence the quite broad range that's been quoted, I think. I suppose for context, my charger at home was 1,200 on the drive, so if you're at the 2,000 end, you're not a million miles away, but if you're at the 6,000 end, it's a big gap, and the payback period is going to be challenging on that.
Yeah, and I just think it's probably worth doing it. You know, EVs are relatively expensive anyway, so any way that we can make it cheaper and easier for residents to decarbonise in their own lives, I think would be really beneficial.
No, I agree, and once we've worked through those expressions of interest, I'm happy to have another conversation about what that actually ended up looking like in terms of costs.
Yeah, great, thanks Sam. That's everything.
Great, yeah, so next we'll have Councillor Dudd and then we'll move on to Councillor Weston, so go for it.
Cheers, yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to say something to start with. Obviously, it's been a bit of a battle to get this on the agenda. I've kind of been asking for this for about almost probably 18 months now. So it's good to finally see it on the agenda. But I think it's such an important piece of work that it should come here on a regular basis, maybe twice a year or something like that, so we can scrutinise what's going on. But no, it's good to see it here today, even though it took a requisition request to get it here. So I'll move on for that, draw a line under that, and we'll move on. So it's obviously good to see you in place, Sam. So I think you've just been in place, is it about 6 months now, is it, or something like that? Yeah.
It's pretty much to the day, yeah.
Oh, right, yes. Yeah, so good to see you here. Yeah, I've got several questions. I think some might be exempt questions. Around investment and the heat network. So I imagine that's exempt potentially. So I might leave that to the end. But I'll go on to stuff where I think I'm okay. So just on the EV charging, sort of an issue that's come up that I've noticed is that the maintenance issue around chargers that are put in it doesn't seem to be well supported. And we've got some really good examples of chargers here in the College Street car park where they've not been working for maybe, I don't know, a couple of years. So I know it's obviously good that we get funding in to deliver them, but I just have some concerns about the ongoing maintenance around charge points, because obviously they are important pieces of infrastructure, and people do, once they're in, people rely on them. So to have something out of service for a year or something like that is probably not great. So just on that point, I'll maybe let you respond on that, just to see what your view is of that.
Yeah, so you're talking about the Revive network, just so that's the publicly owned charging infrastructure
That's
in
correct.
the city.
And I was over in Bath as well, because I know it's a West of England company, isn't it, or brand. And there was an issue with sort of charge points in a car park in Bath, for example. And I knew the details about the problems with the charger here. So I just imagine it's probably quite systemic that there's issues with the Revive network and ongoing maintenance.
Yeah, you're right. There are. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head that we get grant funding in to install them, but you always have to have one eye on what's the ongoing cost of owning that charger going to be. So you're right. The network's across the 4 UAs at the moment, with Bristol being the lead authority. So some of the challenges we have is that network relies on a few very profitable chargers, kind of cross-subsidising others that perhaps don't make as much money, and so overall it's not. We're working through this, but it's not totally clear that the network's profitable, washes its own face, I guess, and so that's something we're trying to address. How can we address those costs? You can see by the Levi Local Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Fund that I referenced earlier that the kind of government's direction of travel seems to be moving away from local authorities acting as charge point operators in the future. So the grant funding landscape is more seed money to bring in private finance charge point operators into the city. So I guess there's that question that I know all the UAs are thinking about, in the context of Levi, is what do we do with our existing charging infrastructure? Good analogy with the heat network, I suppose, in Bristol, which used to be publicly owned, but that in itself could have created revenue pressures, and I suppose a charging network has similar challenges. So I suppose as we move forward with Levi, we'll want to keep under review what the best model is for those existing charge points in the city, and whether those are best managed by local government, or whether so there's lots of change in that space. But yeah, I absolutely accept your point. We are looking at the finances of Revive at the moment, and if you do see charges that you want to raise questions about, then of course get in touch.
And then thanks for that. And then just on the large-scale renewable projects, I know in the business plan they were kind of expected later in the 5-year plan, sort of the last couple of years. So we're kind of getting into that phase now, and there's kind of a lack of information about what those projects are, because you'd probably expect some of them to be coming to planning now to get permission. So we're delivering sort of this year and next year. So I just wonder, what are the projects, and what's been the delays in getting some of them coming forward?
Okay, so I'll do what are the projects first, and then I can talk a bit about delays. So the 3 sites that are most developed out of a longer list of 7, you'll remember that way back when there was kind of a long list of 30 or so sites that were identified, and I think that's been whittled down, different challenges across some of those 30. So for the 3 that are being developed, I think it's Hersey Gardens, Smoke Lane, which is an Avonmouth site, and then an expansion of the existing Bristol City Council energy park that's already down there. Those are all at different stages of the project pipeline. Challenges, I mean, so I guess starting with the big one, it's always around payback and viability. So we'll always need to be able to secure a good export price for the power that's being generated so that whoever puts in that capital is going to make a return quick enough to justify the investment up front. So that's a challenge nationally because for solar on our houses, there's subsidy in place. For large grid scale, 5 megawatt plus, there's the government's contract for difference scheme. But in that middle space where these schemes exist, that 1 to 5 megawatt, although we don't yet have a clear subsidy mechanism, we're waiting details on the government's local power plan. So we'll see what comes forward, and we're eagerly anticipating that. So we're not waiting to see. We are pushing forward with the sleeve pull, which, as you know, we're hoping to relaunch that tender by the end of this month. If successful, that does give that subsidy mechanism for those local renewables. So that is the mechanism that we could put forward that could potentially give that export price. But we need to see those tender responses and what the market brings forward before. So you've got those two options, I suppose, either local power plan, which could subsidise schemes, and then that brings down the upfront investment, shortens the payback, or you've got the sleeve pool, or potentially some combination of those. So viability is always a big question with those schemes. There are other challenges, dormice, undergrowth, lots of operational stuff that we could get into. But yeah, the big viability one, I guess, is the one to draw out.
And then in the report, you mentioned there's issues around energy centres and maybe requiring more. And so it sounds like there's potentially been some difficulty around identifying and securing sites for energy centres. So is that something we need to be aware of? And are there sort of contentious sites where maybe there's a bit of a battle for what goes on that site, and maybe we might feel the energy centre is the right thing, but there might be other parts of the council that might have other priorities for the site?
There's no big ones where we're in dispute internally about use of the site at the moment. There's always challenges agreeing leases. As you know, previous committees in previous years have discussed the strategic heat main and the viability of that. Ultimately, if you don't have a strategic heat main coming into the city from Avonmouth, it follows that if you want the same size heat network, you must need more energy centres across the city because the heat has to come from somewhere. There's 3 sites. There's Plot 12 Bath Road Energy Centre where lease is agreed and due to be signed and planning permission's gone through. I think there are 2 to 3 other sites where the leases are in a good stage of development. The big challenge is always the heat network developer knowing when new developments will come online, so they know when to take the land and they know when to build. And so it often feels they're very slow, those projects. It often feels like nothing's happening, and that's because both sides are sort of waiting. And so it's one of the big challenges, I guess, of building out the heat network is that when does the developer need to get that access to that land? They don't want it too early, and they don't want to miss the boat. And so those are the tensions we're trying to manage.
And then finally, I've got questions about the level of private investment coming into to projects, and that compared to sort of grant funding and where we are with that. But I assume that will probably be exempt, the answers to those questions. And obviously there's issues around Vattenfall that are in the news about their position on sort of heat networks in the UK. So I imagine probably commercially sensitive, are they? Or
So what I was going to say on the first point, I don't think level of private investment is a KPI, so we could probably have a discussion around that, but also we could pick that up later. And I think on the heat network point.
Yeah, I'm happily say what I can say now on the heat network, Councillor.
I mean, just anecdotally, obviously we hear lots of good news stories coming through this committee regarding grant funding for projects. And I think there was a recent announcement, wasn't there, about the government grant, further grant for the heat network. But obviously a big part of the partnership was the commitment of over £400 million of investment.
Sorry, what I meant I was going to talk about the sale process.
Oh, okay, so you want me to stop?
Well, I think if we have the discussion,
well, I'll wait for everybody
that,
else.
That's
and then,
okay. But what I was going to say is that I can say now what on the sales. So Vattenfall made the announcement last year, I think, didn't they, about that process? That is ongoing. We are briefed on it fairly regularly. That is commercially sensitive, but as soon as we're able to say something, we will obviously be briefed, and we're briefing regularly via the shareholder function anyway, and we'll let the committee know. But that's about all I can say in any forum at the moment, I'm afraid.
Brilliant. Okay, yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Dodd. And also, just to come back on your first point about wanting a report on City Loop to be a regular thing at this committee, I've spoken with officers about that, and I think it could potentially come as an annual report, and I'd be certainly supportive of that. Yes, so from now we can have this as an annual report coming to this. Yeah, if you're happy to confirm.
Yeah, happy to, and I'd suggest that this time of year is good because it follows the sort of annual reporting cycle and business planning and all that. So unless anyone objects, I'd say sort of May, June is a good time of year.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Great, thank you. Great. So yeah, on to Councillor Weston, and then we'll have Tim and then Emma. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Sam. It's obviously delighted it's all being kicked off in my ward. I know it's kicked off a few times in an unpleasant way, but there seems to be teething troubles and seem to be fine. I'm going to ask a pretty prosaic question, actually. It's coming from some of my residents who are confused with who pays for what. So you've got blocks of houses, you know, house-style flats, yeah? We're looking at putting work on the solar cells and things and all the rest of it on the roof. If you're a leaseholder, so the council owns the freehold, and you then put the thing on the roof, I've seen information come which says that that leaseholder might be liable for up to £30,000 to pay for the work, which they don't have. What's the breakdown? Do the council, do leaseholders have to pay for this kind of work? Are they going to be forced to by the council to take it? What happens there?
So this is a fiendishly complicated area, and
hence why I'm asking, and they're also confused.
we would benefit from having our HRA colleagues and you know the service manager for leaseholders, because the answer on what people are expected to pay is it depends on what type of lease you're on and when that was signed, and it also depends on the works happening and which of those are considered essential and which of those are considered kind of nice to haves, I guess. So you have multiple categories of leaseholder and then multiple categories of improvement. And so you might, across different archetypes or with different leases, come up with different answers. I guess there's a fundamental principle that, you know, as I understand it, the HRA would look to recover where they can, but it's as much a technical housing question as one that I can answer. So we're sort of delivering the works, and the works cost what they do, and there's a separate question about what would the housing team then look to recover back from those leaseholders.
Could I then, on the back of that, since it is fiendishly complex, which makes me feel less like an idiot, which is fine, could I have a name of someone in the housing department to talk to about this? Because this is affecting my residents now, but it's actually going to affect all of our residents going forward. So we're going to need to know when we're asked, and at the point of which leaseholders are going to be forced to do the work. You know, so I know when they sign up to this, they expect, you know, you have to cover costs that's in the lease. But if you could give me a named contact, then I can go and bother them. And I think we might all need to know a little bit more about this.
So, yeah, Julie Mackay.
Julie Mackay, thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks, Councillor Weston. Councillor Kent.
Thank you. Thanks for the report. It's obviously really important that we monitor and hold to account these contracts we have with large companies. My concern is that, and it's good that you've added some exempt information, the KPI, well, the limited data in the exempt information. You mentioned 32. That's not what's in the exempt report. My concern is I see nothing in that report which is commercially sensitive. And I think this is really important. This is a very large contract we have with a private company. We represent the public and their interests, and they have absolutely no idea how that contract is doing against these key performance indicators because it's been put into exempt. I see no legal reason, from having read that paper, why that is exempt. There's nothing there at all that I can see that's commercially sensitive. And so maybe we could ask John Smith to go back and have a word with the lawyers about why the KPIs have been made exempt, because I think that's important about when we have large financial agreements with private companies, we put as much light on it as possible for the public. I don't think there's much hiding there, by the way, that the public should be too concerned, but I think that is the problem. When we hide things behind exempt, people think there's something there, there's a reason we're hiding it. And I think as a council, sometimes we're a little too timid with our corporate partners, and we should push back about why these KPIs are exempt. Anyway, that's my little thing in the public bit. The rest I'll wait for the exempt. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Shall I come back on that? So, thank you, Councillor. The reassurance I would give you is that I have spoken to the lawyers at some length, and the Chair raised exactly the point that you have and asked us to go around that point. In fact, I speak to lawyers so regularly, I brought one with me. I don't know if there's anything you want to say at this stage, Husinara, but I mean, we will, just to reassure you, Councillor, we understand completely the point you're making, and we will keep looking at it, but we are working on the basis of advice we've had up until now. So, is there anything to say?
I can just add, we did review the information in full, and it did fall within the category within the Council's constitution to be considered as commercially sensitive, because it does relate to the financial affairs of a third party, and that in accordance with our requirements, the monitoring officer agreed those should be categorised as exempt. So that's the basis. So it was a council decision to consider as exempt.
I was just going to come back on your first point about the KPIs, and there are 31 in total. The reason that I didn't put them all in is because a lot of them are challenging to interpret without context. At least 6 or 7 don't apply till later in the agreement, and lots of the other ones sum up to the headline. So the ones we put in are the headline KPIs that the other ones sum up to. But that being said, I'm more than happy to come and do a follow-up, session with the committee and talk through all of them. That's fine. Notwithstanding the legal advice, but if we can find the right environment to do that.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. And that sounds really good if there is appetite. Was it related specifically to this?
Yeah, just related. So I think like an annual report is fine, but I think maybe in between some sort of briefing outside of the meeting, maybe a couple of times a year.
Brilliant.
It's probably more suited. So I don't know if
Thank you.
That's better, yeah.
Yeah, if you're happy to take that away to organise that, that would be brilliant. Yeah.
Yep, happy to do that. So we can look at bringing it annual here and then essentially 2 briefings a year outside. Is that good?
Brilliant, yes. Yeah, thank you, Pete, and thank you, Sam. And yeah, I mean, totally take the point, and I think it is really important that we're transparent wherever we can, and so continually sort of questioning that and making sure that things are only exempt if there are good reasons. Yes, and there was, a lot of legal advice sought on that. But yeah, no, I'm grateful to you for raising that. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. So I'm an outsider to this committee. I'm just subbing today. So it was really interesting to read this. And actually, I'm on the Transport Committee. Some of this is relevant to transport. As Councillor Weston just said, some of this is relevant to housing. There's a lot of crossover, and I know that happens quite a bit on this committee because so many of these things kind of encompass a lot of different portfolios. I would like to request that we have all member briefings on this, because a lot of this work also goes into members' wards. The electric lamppost charges. I would love to, see your data on that and how successful they are. Where are they successful? Is there any areas that are more successful than others? Are they making a difference? In transports, we're looking at the healthy street strategy, and I can see that being part of that as well. So my request is just for a little bit more of like all member or all committee sort of briefing, so that we can make sure that we're doing that kind of joined up work.
So yeah, in general, happy to come wherever and brief whoever. And I suppose there's just a point to make that where we're delivering specific projects, whether that's Levi for electric vehicle infrastructure, whether that's the rolling retrofit programme for housing, where those need a key decision, if we want to sign up to a £3 million grant funding agreement, if we want to sign a contract to deliver £25 million of retrofit works, those will always come to the relevant committee. So the decision to deliver that rolling retrofit programme would have come to housing. When we bring Levi through, there'd presumably be a decision then through to Transport Committee. So I suppose it's about disaggregating the projects that happen project by project from the kind of overall governance mechanism that for the operation of City Leap.
Sure. And just going on from that, I remember a few years ago when this was all sort of getting going, there were some really good like road shows with City Leap going into different parts of the city to do public engagement. Is that something that you will be doing again in the future? Because I think that's quite a nice thing to do, to engage with different communities.
Your colleague behind you, I think, is... But so...
Great.
So a huge amount of engagement happened around the retrofit programme in Henbury and Braintree because of the importance of kind of resident engagement for the success of that. But yeah, I think we're really open to that actually. So there's a lot of change going on, change of leadership, both sides of the partnership, and so we've been discussing actually kind of a stakeholder engagement plan and how kind of towards the end of this year we might go and, I don't want to say relaunch because it's been around for too long, but you know, re-promote.
Great, lovely. Fab. Thanks.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Again, so are you okay to take that away as an action to set up an all-member briefing on some of the projects that are coming through? Or, yeah, great. Perfect, thank you very much. Councillor Fodor.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. And thanks very much, Sam, for bringing all this together. It's really helpful to be reminded of all the different initiatives and obviously all the key decisions that come through either this committee or the other committees that are relevant. But it's helpful to look at them all together once in a while and to take stock of progress. And I think it's important to sort of see that at this stage, it's got to a certain point where we're looking at how far we've got with certain things. And some things are well ahead and we're really successful. And the retrofit programme and the social value programme are all really good, despite the fact we haven't necessarily got all the grants we were hoping for from the government for retrofit. And a number of things have been held up by government delays. Do we have any sort of insight into when those might come forward? Because we've just heard the heat network can progress and get investment, but some of the other projects we've had to wait a while. And I don't know if it was whether it was optimism that they would all happen at a sort of very rapid schedule year by year, but we've clearly been delayed with some of them, and mainly by sort of policy making or delays, like the government cutting their public sector decarbonisation programme has been really disappointing because that slowed down our own decarbonisation plans as a council. So is there any indication of what will come forward and when to help us sort of make more progress as we obviously hope for?
So I suppose in the sectors where progress has been slower, the local power plan, waiting details from GBE, but has the potential to, I sort of touched on it earlier, but fill that subsidy gap for those kind of medium-sized renewable sites. The news around the grant for the heat network the other day, the 13 million, is really positive from a capital point of view. I think if heat network colleagues were in the room, they'd say that the big thing they need is that customers on the other end, and so you need two things there. You need zoning, and obviously Bristol's put its hand up to go early with zoning, and so that's working its way through. The other thing is that obviously the government has a long-standing commitment to rebalance gas and electricity prices, that the closer those are together, the better for low-carbon heat networks, because the heat costs less, and so more people want it. So yeah, there's always more that can be done, but some of the stuff coming forward does look positive.
That's another point there. So, I mean, this is part of the decarbonisation that goes on, but obviously our purchase of electricity and gas is another part, and we get a regular report on the overall sort of impact of our direct and indirect carbon emissions. If the government does unblock that factor that's keeping electricity prices linked to gas and making them expensive, if it unblocks that, then we'll be able to make more rapid progress if we switch more to electricity, presumably. So I see that as one of the ways we'll decarbonise the council and the city altogether, and it'll speed up a lot of the electrification and decarbonisation by doing that, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, electric heating being cheaper is pretty much the key enabler. So. Brilliant,
thank you very much. So are there any other questions or comments which are suitable for... Yeah, Councillor Tate.
My question is just around social value. Obviously, it's shown that that's doing quite well within the report, but I suppose I'm probably asking for more minutiae detail around areas of like high deprivation and whether you can show whether those wards have benefited from this investment on more of like a citywide level, so we can see it broken down ward by ward. And yeah, just because obviously climate inequality is a big thing, and we want to make sure that this investment reaches all of the parts of the city, and just about like planning, being aware of what parts of the city you are preparing to do the next bits of work in, so that officers can be, councillors can be informed, so we can help with communicating this with residents, which was the earlier point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the data to hand, but I'm pretty confident. We know who the successful applicants to the Community Energy Fund have been, so we must know where they are. So I'm sure that someone can put that report together. I'm happy to take an action and come back.
Great, and I'm sure you're already doing it, but obviously Pride of Place is in Hartcliffe, so I'd really like you to think about how we can use both of the money to leverage extra funding and benefit from this fund.
And of course, the archetypes of housing that we're already working on in Henbury and Braintree, there's lots and lots of similar archetypes in Hartcliffe and Withywood, so it'd be really good to follow up and think about how that, the direction of travel for that retrofit programme in the future, and how we can do even more homes with the warm homes funding that's coming through.
Because I know you did the road shows way back, but it wasn't necessarily that well attended, and there is a board being made up now, and so people will be interested because it's relevant to them, whereas at the time climate action is always really difficult to talk about anyway, particularly in wards of where there's loads of barriers. So I would say that accessible communication is really vital at this stage.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Fodor.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, I did have another question. It relates to the need to work closely with the community energy sector and to put that social value and the wealth back into our communities. So it sort of follows on from what Kirsty said. It did come up at a recent area meeting that people were applying to the council for money to do some energy projects, and they were looking to ask for a community infrastructure levy, which is extremely limited in some parts of the city. I feel there's an opportunity to do more to publicise the Bristol City Leap Community Energy Fund and the grants, the loans, the small grants, the larger scale support and work they can do. Because there is a lot more that can be done, and it can benefit communities all over the city. And I just think it's worth remembering that that's something some of us strongly sort of advocated when this was being proposed, that it has to support the community energy sector, not purely be a sort of corporate partner to the city council itself. And that is quite promising. It has led to a lot of social value. But there are lots more grants, aren't there? There's more funding. So we need to make sure all members get information about that and see what it can do to help them. I'd just like to encourage that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Fodor.
I was just thinking, perhaps one of the things that we could do is to make the officers that deal with the community infrastructure levy funding aware of the community fund, so that they could signpost applicants to that as well as the SIL resources.
That could be helpful, thank you. Yeah.
That's a great suggestion, thanks very much. So I wonder if that can be incorporated into the area committee process. No, sorry.
No, I was thinking more that if an application comes in for the right kind of project, then the officer could highlight that to the community organisation that's making that application and say, here is another pot that might be suitable.
Understood. Yeah,
to enable SIL to be used more widely, or to double fund or something.
That sounds really good. So yeah, an information sharing among officers. Thank you. Okay, if there are no more questions or comments that are appropriate for the public session. I know there are some for the exempt session. So under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, I propose that the public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of Schedule 12A of the Act. So could I have a seconder for that proposal?
I'll second that.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So yeah, we'll now move into an exempt... Oh, wait, so yes, we need to have a vote, don't we? Yes. Could we vote on moving to an exempt session? What's that? Sorry? Oh, so votes for, thank you. Votes for moving to an exempt session. That is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, votes against moving into an exempt session? None. And any abstentions? 2 abstentions. Thank you very much. So yes, that has carried. So we will now move into an exempt session. And for anybody watching online, yes, you won't be able to see anything while we're in that exempt session. And then we will come back to note the report when we've finished. Thank you. Brilliant. So we're all back from our exempt session. So yes, thank you for your patience, anybody who is watching online. Yes, and we have discussed the exempt section of the report. Before we conclude that report, I just wanted to correct an error, which is that I had said the wrong number of people that voted for moving into the exempt session. So it was actually 7 people voted for moving into the exempt session, and there were 2 abstentions. So just to correct the record on that one. And then, yes, so for this report, it was just for noting. So can I ask that the committee notes that report, agenda item 8? Brilliant.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So we can take that as noted. Thanks, everybody. So moving on to agenda, and yes, thank you, officers, for that. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 9, which is to set up a new task and finish group, which is a sustainable food task and finish group. And the ask is that members agree to establish this task and finish group under the Constitution. The terms of reference and working arrangements for a task and finish group shall be determined by the relevant policy committee, taking into consideration the overall resources available to the council following the advice from officers. And it's a non-key decision. And I'll pass over to... Oh, yes, sorry, Councillor Weston.
So, before we get into this, am I right in thinking we're being asked to set up 2 task and finish groups running simultaneously all at the same time? Because I thought we'd only have 1 task and finish group at any one moment. And here we seem to be having 2 running all over the same. Now, and including on some of these, one of them is talking about a 7.5-hour visit. For example, you know, I have a job. I'm not necessarily sure I can commit to doing 2 task and finish groups along with the other 5 committees I'm sitting on.
Thank you for raising that, and that is understandable. So my understanding is that we can have 2 task and finish groups per committee. And I guess the other thing I'd say on that, but I would see if officers want to come in a moment, is that my view is that for this sustainable food task and finish group, it's a really cross-committee issue. So my hope would be that it wouldn't end up being just the members of this committee on both task and finish groups, but that we might be able to get some representation from a range of committees on the sustainable food task and finish group. But no, I hear your concern, and obviously you may well want to be on both. I don't know if you can advise on that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So we can establish the 2 task and finish groups today, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to run simultaneously. So I suppose we can chat with the officers and see what might be the priority to pull through first, and from you guys as well. And then, yeah, we can get them scheduled as and when. Thank you.
Oops. Sorry, my alarm is going off. Oh, it stopped. Oh, it's yours. Oh, I thought it was mine.
No, it was mine. Reminded me to put out my recycling. So sorry about that. Well,
very appropriate. Great. Yes, thank you for clarifying that. Yes.
Great. Just turn that off.
Yes, and then over to you to introduce it. Thanks, Alex.
I'm sorry about that. Yes, so we were asked to develop terms of reference for this working group, and focused on sustainable food and focused on the sort of environmental aspects of sustainable food. In the city, we have been working with partners on a strategy called Good Food 2030, and really that defines what we mean by good food, and that language was an attempt to kind of address the whole range of issues which the food system interacts with in terms of our health, the supply chains and the well-being of the farmers and the animals that are in that supply chain, and also our environment. And so we've set the terms of reference of this working group in that context of the existing plans that we've got, and identified a number of areas where we think it's particularly pertinent to the city council as opposed to the wider city and the food system, and are proposing that we would focus it on 4 topics, which is the council's food procurement, the council provision of food in schools and some education around sustainable food, council licensing of events on city council land, and then food growing on council land. So all of them are about where the council has a direct or indirect involvement in the food system there, rather than our broader involvement in the food system in the wider city. And we've proposed a sort of model of a series of sort of individual meetings on each of those topics, and then at the start, a meeting at the start to frame it, and one at the end to draw the conclusions together. And hopefully that's a sort of manageable amount of capacity from the committee members, but also allows enough time to get into some of the details of it. And as Councillor Finch said, recognising that when we work on sustainable food, you'll see there's a large number of teams involved who report to a range of different committees, and therefore it's been suggested by members that we would seek representation through the party groups from a number of those committees, those three committees identified in the paper, which is yourselves, the Public Health and Communities, and also Strategy and Resources. Thank you. Questions?
Brilliant. Thanks very much for introducing that. I'll open it up to questions. And also on that point, obviously I've made the suggestion that it goes to whips rather than it defaulting to members of this committee being on it. But as we're going round, please do indicate if you are interested in being on it as well. It would be good to get a sense of how many people are keen to be on this Task and Finish group. Councillor Fodor first.
Thanks very much, and thanks for presenting the proposed terms of reference. I'd like to really endorse this. 2 years running in our committees look at our forward plan. We've said we wanted to do work on sustainable food. I think there's a little gap that we had the partnerships. We've had Bristol Good Food 2030, and lots of bits of the council and our contractors have worked with those partners. But the council itself didn't, I think, adopt its own policy, which has potentially affected when we do procure food, when we do some of this work of our own. And so it's very timely that we do develop our own perspective on this, make that clear both for ourselves, our colleagues, and our partners. And I think it's quite worthwhile. And it certainly is cross-cutting the note on section 6, paragraph 6, that shows how many different parts of the council have a part to play, shows that it really will be cross-cutting, and so I endorse that proposal. And it needn't be seen as a burden. We could have done this a year ago potentially, but it's timely that we do it now and clarify the policy and then help to be ready when we have decisions to make across the council. And that's part of our strategic role. That's the Environment and Sustainability Committee. So I endorse it. Thanks.
Brilliant, thanks very much. Does anybody else have any questions or comments on this? Yes, Councillor Ken.
Sorry, I just have a very brief one, and that is, it's been suggested that we won't run these concurrently. We won't run them together, but one after the other. I just want to check which one are you intending to run first, then, because I know there is a timetable here for the in the terms of reference for the Sustainable Food Task and Finish group, but there's no equivalent timetable for the Waste Phase 2 group.
That's a very good question. I guess it would depend on the membership of each committee and each Task and Finish group and the availability of those members. But Amy, if you wanted to come back on that.
Yeah, sure. So I think it was actually the waste one that we have more of a timetable set out. And I think that was because we've already had a phase 1 of the group, and this is like the second phase of it, essentially. So I don't know if officers can come in there on how soon we might want to progress that. But sure.
I think, yes, the natural progression of the 4 themes that I'll touch on in a minute in the waste build on actually improving or addressing service challenges, failures, and obviously evolution also of non-standards and bulky and fly tipping, which I know has been very topical in the chamber and also from public forums. Just from speaking to Alex, potentially there's no necessary time limit on the current terms of reference we're talking about in terms of sustainable food, whereas I think the waste in the context of aligning it in this year to think of moving forward into a new contract with Bristol Waste that we agreed in December. Obviously, we've got to bring that back to committee. I think it would be, my recommendation or suggestion would be that we look at the waste first. That would be my suggestion.
Thanks very much. That sounds good to me. So I guess we'd prioritise getting those dates in for the waste task and finish group and then seeing how the sustainable food task and finish group might fit around that. But yeah, thank you. Good question. Any other questions or comments on this, or shall we move to the recommendations? One from Councillor Weston.
Thank you. Just one. In both of these task and finish groups, you're talking about taking a full day out. So the first meeting of this one is a day. There's another, in the next one, we're talking about another day. You are limiting your membership if you think that councillors can take a whole day off work. I would flag that. That is a very limiting factor to what is a part-time role. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I'll come back to one moment. Yeah, thank you very much for raising that. I mean, with the, I guess we're talking about the food task and finish group at the moment. Yeah, so maybe we can touch on the waste one. Interesting. I don't know if you can comment on that.
I was looking slightly puzzled because I think you probably should have just said a half day, but clearly we can tailor the amount of time spent in the working group to the members' availability. So, sorry about that.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, so again, I guess one to be worked out once we know the membership to make sure that people aren't excluded. And I guess when it does go to whips, assuming that's the process that's followed, it can be made clear, hopefully, when it's put out to members that, yeah, it can be flexible to people's availability. I'm going to go to Councillor Tate and then to Councillor Fodor.
It was just another practicality question around school pickup and school holidays, just because that's not been considered in the past.
Thank you for flagging that. Yeah, I mean, my hope would be that for both of these task and finish groups, we'll get a sense of the membership and then, you know, be able to well in advance schedule the meetings. Yeah, and so I guess that relies on all of the members sort of getting back quite quickly to the officers who are scheduling those meetings. But yeah, I think as long as everyone on the task and finish groups commits to sort of giving our availability, then hopefully we'll be able to find a time that everybody can make, and especially when it comes to specific constraints like pickup, you know, school pickup times. Thank you. Councillor Fodor?
Yeah, just to confirm, because they're not here, Councillor Russell was obviously very interested in this topic. I am too, and just the point that it says a day or half day in that meeting format paragraph. So I'm sure once we know who's involved, it can be flexible.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. So are we now happy to move on to the recommendations, or are there any other comments or questions? Okay, brilliant. Yeah, and I get, so a couple of people have expressed an interest in being on this task and finish group. If there's anyone else who wants to explicitly express an interest at this point in being on the sustainable food task and finish group, please do. But otherwise, if everyone's happy, I think we will allow whips to work out the membership and hopefully with an emphasis on it being cross-committee as well. Yes.
So that recommendation needs to change then, doesn't it? That's not what we're going to do.
I sought advice on this, and I think the recommendations are okay as is, but we're just minuting that.
Is that right? I don't think that's the case, is it? A recommendation is like gospel, isn't it? So.
Yes. So the recommendations are for clarity that the Committee for Environment and Sustainability agrees the proposed terms of reference for the Sustainable Task and Finish Group, Appendix A, so we can vote on that one first. And then recommendation 2, so it is about agreeing the membership of the group. So what I was going to move is, I was going to propose Councillor Izzy Russell as the chair. So I would move that the Committee for Environment and Sustainability agrees Councillor Izzy Russell as the chair, and that we set the group up with a membership of 9 people for the task and finish group to ensure political proportionality. I could add to that on the end that we take it to the whips for...
Yeah, because we haven't discussed who would chair, and my understanding was that it was with the whips, because there's discussion around who chairs. We do have some interest within the Labour Party for the food task and finish group as well.
That's good to know. Could you clarify the process on that? Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, the recommendation is as stands that the committee is to agree the chair and membership arrangements, and we can take that, and if we can't come to an agreement on who's going to chair and who are going to be the members at this point, we can pick that up outside of the meeting. So yeah, if there's possible more nominations for chairs, we could pick that up afterwards.
Thanks very much. Councillor Weston.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to approve recommendation 1. I don't have an issue with the terms of reference, with the caveat that really should be half a day, not a full day. Number 2, though, I think we're referring this to the whips to sort out, because to get the membership and to establish the chair. I'm not okay approving 2 straight off the bat now. It feels a very different recommendation, what you're suggesting, as to what's up there.
Thank you.
Because you're suggesting a specific person, which isn't listed on the membership. And we're also talking about referring it to the whips, which also isn't on the recommendation. So what you're proposing seems to be quite different from the recommendation.
Okay, yeah, I take your point. So, yeah, I mean, oh yeah, sorry.
In the effort to be helpful, which I realise is a rare commodity for me, the tweak to number 2, you're proposing a person for chair, so we can vote that yes or no. Yeah. The membership, we could just say membership to be determined by volunteers ascertained by the whip, or some tightened up language there. So you can propose your chair, membership to be confirmed by the whips after this meeting. And that would be number 2. Yeah? So, and then it's a yes or no as to your chair.
So maybe splitting 2 out into a first point, which is to propose a chair and see if that goes through, and a second point, which is for the whips to determine the membership. And if the chair doesn't go through, we've still got the task and finish group set up, and we can find a way of
Yes.
of selecting a chair outside of this meeting.
Yes, okay. I mean, apparently it's our role to establish the chair today, apparently.
Yes, it is. It is. But there's obviously been some. Yeah. Yes.
I'm not putting myself forward. I think I'm okay, just to clarify.
So is that okay to...
Abby, I would like to put myself forward as well.
Okay. Okay. So... Okay, I think we've got a way forwards. Thank you, everybody, for your suggestions. So to start with, I'll just propose the first recommendation, which is the non-controversial one. I will then propose Councillor Izzy Russell as chair and look for a seconder, and then Councillor Kirsty Tate can propose yourself as chair and look for a seconder, and then we can vote on both of those chairs. And then hopefully we'll come out of it with a chair. If not, we can, I guess, that would then need to be decided at a later stage. And then we can also, I guess, after that, move that, move that the committee goes forward with a membership of, the task and finish group goes forward with a membership of 9 people to ensure political proportionality, and that those members be agreed by the whip, so that we can take it in sort of 3. Is everybody happy with that approach? Brilliant. Okay, so to start with, the first recommendation, I move that the Committee for Environment and Sustainability agrees the proposed terms of the reference for the proposed terms of reference for the Sustainable Food Task and Finish Group Appendix A. Could I get a seconder for that one, please?
I'll second that.
Okay, great. Councillor Tate has seconded that. Yes, if everybody, those in favour of that one, please. That is unanimous, I believe. Should I still do against? And if it's unanimous, just declare it. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much. And then, then I will move Councillor Izzy Russell as chair of the Task and Finish Group. Could I get a seconder for that, please? Great. That's Councillor Edwards has seconded that one. And now, yeah, Kirsty, if you want to, yeah.
And I would like to put myself forward as chair for the Task and Finish Group for Food.
And I'd like to second that, please.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Have you got that? Fantastic. And so now we can take a vote on that. So with the vote on that, okay, so we're now going to take a vote for Izzy Russell and a vote for Councillor Tate. We can only vote for one of those people each. So nobody can vote for both. And then if one person gets more votes, then, yeah, that will be clear. Perfect. So, oh, yes.
Just a quick question. If Kirsty is put through, can she vote?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, good question. Yes, nice. Is everybody clear on this process? Great. So those in favour of Councillor Izzy Russell as chair, please put your hands up now. That is 5 votes in favour of Councillor Izzy Russell. Those in favour of Councillor Kirsty Tate as chair, hands up now. That is 4 in favour of Councillor Kirsty Tate. Thank you very much. So does that mean Councillor Izzy Russell is...
Yeah, but subject to, we'd have to put that into the substantive recommendation.
Okay.
So now we take the vote on the recommendation with Councillor Russell in there.
Okay. So there were more votes for Councillor Izzy Russell than Councillor Kirsty Tate. So now what I will do is I'll propose part 2 of the recommendation with Councillor Izzy Russell as chair. Yes, and yes, we'll see what happens. So I now recommend that the Committee for Environment and Sustainability agrees Councillor Izzy Russell as the chair and a membership of 9 members for the Task and Finish group agreed by the whips to ensure political proportionality. All those in favour, please put... Oh, sorry, yes, sorry, a seconder. Thank you so much. That's Councillor Fodor seconding that. All those in favour? Oh, yeah, thank you very much. Six in favour. Anybody against? And any abstentions? 3 abstentions. Thank you very much. Great. Brilliant. I think that is concluded. Fantastic. That has concluded that item. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. So then moving on to the final item on the agenda, which is establishing the Waste Task and Finish group. So again, a non-key decision, and I'll invite Pete Anderson to introduce this one.
Thanks, Chair. Conscious of the time, the recommendations are very similar to this one than the last one, but in terms of the context of the report, so and you'll recall that last year we had a number of Task and Finish group meetings in and around Waste Task and Finish group, which helped inform decisions that went into the December committee. But there was always an aspiration stroke hope to have a second round of Task and Finish on waste, particularly in relation to reuse and the circular economy, a focus on bulky waste and fly tipping in the context of what we do, how we do it, and how could we do things differently. There was also conversations in relation to service optimization in terms of the future, in terms of particularly in relation to our delivery of non-standards and services to households in flat high density areas, as well as the use of mini recycling centres in the neighbourhoods. And that's, I think that's been played out in the chamber and with public forum questions, particularly in St Paul's. And there was always a hope aspiration to work towards refreshing or creating a new waste and resources strategy, which we've said we would over several years, I think. I think the activity we've done has improved what we do, but in terms of how refreshing our strategy to waste and resources was an intention also. So this report has an appendix outlining the terms of reference, as well as an appendix 2, which brings to life what we were suggesting in relation to the task and finish. Councillor Weston mentioned earlier there was a reference to a 7.5-hour, one-day commitment. The reason for that inclusion was conversations around visiting others, and particularly in the reuse context. And there was a conversation and proposal that we could do a visit to the reuse hub up in Manchester, and it was thought a good idea to put that forward, so for consideration, alongside the 4 meetings as I've described. So in terms of under the report, it's an item on point 11, so it breaks the 4 down: circular economy, reuse, bulky waste disposal and fly tipping. Thirdly, service optimisation and future design, and fourthly, strategic principles informing the strategy. There was also a proposal in the terms of reference about legislation. There's a lot of regulation in this space, not only what we currently do, but we know in relation to, councillors will be familiar with this, in relation to simply recycling and the potential introduction of an admittance trading scheme, deposit return scheme, and the intention was we could include either within the 4 or a separate briefing on legislation in terms of what is the current position and what does that look like in terms of implementation of timeframes. So in summary, task and finish group with 4 meetings and themes, a proposal to visit the reuse hub and also potentially consider a legislative update. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Brilliant. Yes, so any questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Kent.
Hi, it's probably not a question, it's more of a point. So firstly, I think this is really good. I particularly, as you know, want us to look at what we're doing around fly tipping. It's my big bugbear. And I think as a council, it's just a bit chaotic with one department owning another bit of land, and then a bit of land next to it could be owned by another department, be completely different rules on whether we collect it or not within 3 days. So I think a good piece of work around that and to get those rules resolved for the whole of the council would be good. I do want to just bring up about the chairing of this, because I'm presuming this is going to be our next big row. So can people who want to chair please put their names forward? And maybe for the future, can I just ask that perhaps the chair and vice chair talk about this for future task and finish groups? I mean, we did have an agenda setting meeting where we looked at this. There was some discussion around who would be chairing at the agenda setting meeting. I don't know if you as chair and vice chair previously discussed this at your meeting, but there must be a better way of doing this than us just randomly voting on names at the end of a long meeting.
There's been lots of emails going around, and actually I was stuck in France on Monday. So me and Abby have been talking since, but didn't realise that a decision was going to have to be made.
Yeah, but yes, thank you very much for that suggestion. And yeah, I think as well, there's been maybe, a little bit of uncertainty as to when the decision would be made, which, Amy cleared up, which was very helpful. But yes, definitely happy to take that forward. Yes, and thank you for your support, Amy, as well. Great. Yes, any other questions and comments?
Just straight off the bat, we had no interest in chairing this group because this was also something that the Greens had done, which is why we were interested in then the other one, so that it was about there being even access to be able to chair task and finish groups, which currently there isn't.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, and definitely it sounds like that. Yeah, that work in future would be really positive. Thanks. Any other questions or comments on this one? Yes, Councillor Fodor.
Yeah, thanks. No, I think there is a fair bit of unfinished business here from the first part of the task and finish group. We've put a lot of important things here about reuse and repair, which were discussed in this committee previously and brought up in public forum and so on, such as seeing what can be done elsewhere. And while we've done a lot of work to sort of deal with the neglect of things like fly tipping over the years by the housing service and the park service, it's still got to be ratified that the park service comes on board. We've got housing finally to agree similar service standards and conditions, and we put resources back in there. So there's work to do to resolve some of these communal bin issues. Certainly, it's all in progress, but needs to be completed. So I think it is very timely that we do this, and I agree with the 4 parts of the sort of themes that are in it, and I look forward to this work. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you, Martin. Councillor Dudd?
Yeah, around, is it point C, around service optimisation and future city design, is there an opportunity to include the depot issue that we have as part of that? Or is that just too big an issue for this group? Because obviously that issue needs to be resolved, doesn't it? Because that drives a lot of how the services are delivered going forward over the next 10, 15 years or so. We still don't really have a sort of I know you're kind of working away on it, Pete, but it's quite an important issue, isn't it, where depots are in terms of the services that flow from them. And we don't really have a sort of a 5 or 10 year plan on that yet, do we?
Well, we're bringing from a previous request, I think for the July meeting, we're bringing an update on Albert. I think it's important in terms of the transition centre. There is a live transformational project about to be kicked off in relation to depot across the council. Clearly, our depots, I think there's about 34 in total, I think. You are right in terms of what is the plan, and we need to devise that, of which the waste depot is an important part of that. We know in some of our depots we share with parks and some waste colleagues and others. So yes, you're right in terms of at the moment we don't have a depot strategy with that longer view, but there is that work, particularly in the waste space in relation to, because of Temple Quarter and the needing to look at Albert and a different transfer centre. And I'm sure when we provide you the briefing at the next meeting, that will bring some comfort and insight in relation to what we're doing and where we're going. But yes, we do need to give that consideration on the longer term. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Any other questions or comments before we move to the recommendations? Okay, let's move ahead to the recommendations then. So the first recommendation is that the Committee for Environment and Sustainability agrees to establish the Phase 2 of the Task and Finish Group on Waste and Recycling as per the proposals outlined in this report. Can I ask for a seconder on that one? Brilliant. Councillor Crawford. Great. And then if we can vote on that. So all those in favour of recommendation 1? Brilliant. That is unanimous. Fantastic. And then, yes, for the second recommendation, we'll do it similarly as how we did it before. I have chaired this Task and Finish Group up until now, but now that I am the committee chair, I have decided to step down from this. Yes, I guess partly because I have less time, but also to give other people the opportunity. And Councillor James Crawford expressed an interest in chairing this one, so I'll be proposing James as chair, unless anybody else would like to propose themselves. Okay, brilliant. So the second recommendation, I propose that the Committee for Environment and Sustainability agrees Councillor James Crawford as the chair and a membership of 9 people for the Task and Finish Group to ensure political proportionality. Could I have a seconder for that one, please? Okay, brilliant. James Crawford has seconded that one. And then all of those in favour? That is 6 in favour. All those against? And any abstentions? 3 abstentions. Thank you very much. Okay, brilliant. Great. So that concludes that item, and that was the final item on the agenda. Did you have something you want to say? Oh, no. That was the final item of the agenda. Thank you so much, everybody. And also, I realised that at the start of the meeting, I wanted to say thank you to Martin Fodor, the previous chair of this committee, for 2 years, a very long stint. Yeah, please don't disrespect my thanking remarks to Martin. Yes, yeah, thank you so much to Martin. You've given so much to this committee. Yeah, and I mean, it's a real honour to be able to take the baton on from you and to build on the work that you've done. So yeah, really appreciate all your work. Great. Brilliant. And thank you everyone for your attendance. I will now conclude the meeting. Thank you.